I think, like you said, there's definitely that competitive fire. You know, both of us want to win more than anything, and that's how it should be when you're a competitor and you get into a situation like this, you know.
Like, me and Caitlin Clark don't hate each other. Like, I want everybody to understand that it's just a super competitive game, and, like, I would just wish people realize that.
All right, get your popcorn. In our spotlight, the most highly anticipated game of the women's basketball season is coming before we even get to the Final Four. Caitlin Clark leading Iowa into a rematch with Angel Reese and the LSU Tigers in the Elite Eight tonight. The two teams met last year in the national championship game. That left Angel Reese showing her middle finger, her ring championship finger, to Caitlin Clark there. Let's bring back our panel. And joining us from the tournament in Albany is ESPN's Andrea Adelson. Andrea, listen, you got the best seat in the house there, sitting courtside for tonight's game. Just how highly anticipated of a rematch is this?
You mentioned popcorn. I want to run up into the stands right now and get my popcorn to talk to you because, yes, this is the most anticipated women's basketball game in recent memory. When you consider when they played for the national championship last year, nearly 10 million people tuned in. That's the most watched women's basketball game ever. It peaked at 12.6 million viewers, and now both teams are playing for a spot in the Final Four. I think a lot of us wish that this game was actually at the Final Four and not here in the Elite Eight, but this is the way that the committee seated them. So, of course, you mentioned Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese. And I have to tell you, all the questions yesterday during the post-game press conference were about their competitiveness and their quote-unquote rivalry. And both players talked about having a healthy respect for one another because they both know that they're growing the game. And to them, that's what's most important when you look at the television ratings that have been set, when you look at the attendance records that have been set. That is what these two players care the most about. And as Caitlin Clark said, hey, if I was a basketball fan sitting at home, I'd be glued to the TV too.
Well, we talk about those attendance records, but also, I mean, just so many stars coming out of the women's tournament this year. LZ, I want to swing this to you. Listen, the scoreboard's going to say Iowa and LSU tonight, but we heard Angel Reese in that soundbite after last year's trash talking. Is this all about Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese?
It's not, but I will say this in terms of framing how we think about Caitlin Clark's legacy going forward. She needs to win this game. It's really hard to be considered GOAT in any sport if you don't have any championships. It's hard to be considered GOAT in any sport if the same team and the same player keeps beating you. So while I understand she surpassed Pete Maravich in terms of the scoring record and her style of play is amazing, Angel Reese is a beast. And she bodied her in the championship last year. And if it happens again, that doesn't mean that Caitlin Clark didn't have a fantastic career. Of course she did. But the conversation about her being the greatest college basketball player of all time, you're putting a serious break on that one.
That's an interesting point. Okay, Julie, hop in here. The women's tournament, it's no longer an afterthought. We were talking about the attendance records and the stars that have come out of this tournament. How big is this for the women's game overall? I mean, the ticket prices for tonight's game are through the roof. I mean, one secondary marketplace website is saying right now the least expensive women's championship tickets are 30% more expensive than the men's championship game. What do you make of that?
No, I had a conversation once with somebody who was at the WNBA, a star at the WNBA, and she told a story about having to go to somewhere in South America for a tournament and having to take like 17 planes and then a bus for about 24 hours to get to her destination. And she said, do you think LeBron James ever has to go through this? And what this has finally done is put women's basketball on the map in a way that I think I'm not paying attention at all to what the men are doing. All I care about is what the women are doing tonight. And I think this is just fantastic for the sport, not just for college women, but also obviously for the WNBA and women's sports in general.
Well, and look, John, we don't want to neglect the men completely, especially North Carolina, because they're definitely putting on for their state. NC State, both their men's and women's teams are headed to the Final Four. NC State men's made it as an 11 seed. They'd make history if they made it to the championship game. What do you think of their chances?
Listen, NC State's the ultimate Cinderella on the men's side, and to have your women's and men's basketball teams in the Final Four is unprecedented. It's fantastic. And to take a step back just for a second, this is really a great success point to look at for women's sports equality in college. And I think it's great that we're talking about it. And I think it's great that it's going to be an awesome game tonight. And I'll be watching, no doubt.
Yeah. Well, and Andrea, last word here. The men's Final Four is being held in a football stadium with a soaring popularity of the women's game. Is it time for the NCAA to start looking for bigger venues for the women?
Yes, it is time, and multiple coaches this week talked about that. The problem for the women is they've picked these sites out years in advance before the growth that we've seen over these last couple of years, but certainly there will be a reevaluation moving forward of what these sites look like, because here in Albany, I can tell you, if they were playing in front of 40,000 people, the stadium would be absolutely sold out.
All right. Thank you, LZ, John, Julie, and ESPN's Andrea Adelson. Now, you can catch all the action tonight on ESPN with Iowa and LSU tipping off at 7 p.m. Eastern. And following that game, UConn takes on the undefeated University of South Carolina. We cannot wait.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.